Welcome to Talking It Out. I'm Jonathan Geffner, and my very special guest today is Dan Horn. He's one of the most amazingly talented ventriloquists in the world today.
Used to be, maybe. I don't know about now.
Certainly are in my book. And most of you
Okay.
out there probably know Dan. You've seen him at some time or another from his many appearances on TV, countless appearances over many years in hundreds of TV commercials, comedy club appearances, PSAs. You may have seen him live in hundreds of the top comedy clubs around the country and maybe other venues as well. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you. That introduction, I'd really like to see this guy you're talking about. He sounds amazing.
I would too.
You can't have meant me.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't be too modest, Dan, because you really are one of the truly amazing ventriloquists working in the world today and for a while now, number of years. When did you get started? What was your path to become a ventriloquist?
Well, I had a passion for puppets when I was a kid. And then I saw my very first ventriloquist who was performing at a local amusement park here in Phoenix. Her name was Vondeke Van Dyke. She was Miss Arizona in 1964 and became Miss America in 1965. Well, when I was about 4 or 5 or somewhere around there, I saw her at our amusement park here in Phoenix called Legend City. The first time I saw a ventriloquist live, and I just loved the puppet. The puppet was amazing. She had a Marshall figure that she called Curly Q. I didn't know it was a Marshall figure then, but and I thought, wow, if I become a ventriloquist, I'll get to have cool puppets like that. So that's really where it all started.
And you mentioned Marshall, one of the famous figure makers, ventriloquist figure makers, sometimes called dummies. For those of you out there who may not know that much about ventriloquism, Marshall is what was it? Frank Marshall, right? Frank Marshall.
Yeah.
An iconic
from the Chicago area. Right. Did many famous puppets, including Jimmy Nelson's, Danny O'Day, and Farfel. So her puppet was a Marshall figure. That's what really launched my interest in doing.
So you're just, what did you say, 5 or 6 years old?
I was probably about 4 or 5.
How'd you go about it? How did you actually?
It was my birthday, either when I was 5 or when I turned 6. I received a ventriloquist dummy that I was told was Danny O'Day, but I found out later it was actually a Jerry Mahoney figure. But it was the little doll with the string in the back of the neck. It was nothing fancy, but to me at that age it was real. And I was given the Jimmy Nelson's instant ventriloquism record, and I probably played that at least 1,000 times.
I've never heard that. Was it actually helpful? Did it actually teach you?
It was actually helpful. It was Jimmy Nelson and Danny O'Day and Farfel going through the basic technique to get started as a ventriloquist. Now, the technique that's put forth on the record, I found didn't really work for me, and that was the letter substitutions. T instead of a P and a D instead of a B. I found that those weren't working for me, so I started trying to teach myself how to make those sounds with as near as possible without using my lips by treating my tongue as if it was like my lower lip and my palate as if it was the upper lip. And I would, like with an M, the lip would curl in for an M. I would do that with my tongue. I would curl it inside, M, and create as much as possible an M sound. But the fact that I veered away from that technique it still doesn't take away from the fact that's what got me started. That record.
It sounds like a creative approach as a little kid you found there, because I've never come across that. I learned the substitutions when I learned ventriloquism the usual way, that T for P and et cetera, the D for B. That's really fascinating because you have really excellent substitutions. People here, if they most people, well, one of the tributes to ventriloquists, people don't think about that you're substituting sound. They just enjoying it. Right. But when people are very poor at the substitutes, then they might notice sometimes that didn't sound like the right letter. But yours are always great. So that you,
Well, thanks. I rather than substitute, I tried more to recreate.
right. So you
I
didn't
guess that
think of
would
it
be
as
a better
substituting,
way of
right?
putting it. So,
Yeah,
like for a D, that's your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Your tongue is flat, but for a B, your lips kind of curl in. So I would take my tongue and curl it and make a B, kind of tried to recreate
I see.
that
Oh,
same thing with the lips. So I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a B sounds more than a D, which is
oh,
a
sure.
hard, uh, you know, sound with the tongue on the palate. So anyway, that's how what I approached
Mhm.
ventriloquism with is trying to recreate the sounds as much as possible rather than substituting. There's the approach where you use a G kind of sound, a g
This
kind
is
of
the
sound
British way.
for
The,
a
the Brits,
B.
the Brits love that.
Yeah, gobble a gear. Well,
Right.
that just never worked for me.
Yeah.
So as much
That.
as possible, I would try to recreate the sounds using my tongue and palate rather than substituting sounds. But
uh,
still, the record, Jimmy Nelson, Danny O'Day, they're the ones that really launched me into learning how to do it. And what really helped was in the late 70s, I got a job going around to elementary schools that was sponsored by the city of Phoenix. And I did shows about traffic safety. Well, doing two shows in the morning, two in the afternoon, 5 days a week for many years gave me an awful lot of
Yeah.
opportunity to practice. So
Right. So,
practice is really the key.
so how did your family, your parents, and any other relatives and friends, how do people in general react to you becoming such a young budding ventriloquist?
Well, the first time I took my puppet to school and did kind of a show and tell thing, and I did a little, this was maybe second grade, did a little show in front of my class. The teacher thought it was amazing and drugged me around to all of the other classrooms for me to perform in front of the other class. I think the other kids, especially the boys in my class, they took the approach that I was playing with dolls, and then I got labeled that weirdo kid. So I kind of
You got
became
teased.
the kid that everybody picked on because I played with dolls. So at first, the teachers thought it was fun. The kids
Mhm.
didn't. So it kind of went into the closet for a long time, and I didn't bring it out again until I was like a freshman in college.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't bring it out publicly. I still was doing it all that time at
Uh,
home and,
Closet
for
ventriloquism for a while.
family. Family thought it was fun, I think. I think
Uh,
my dad never saw it as something I'd make a career out of. He kind of wanted to see me do something that he thought was a little more reliable and not so possibly disastrous.
right.
When you run out of work, you're unemployed. But
Yeah.
somehow I made a career out of it for over 45 years. So
Mm. So you all along, since you were into the workforce, it was straight to ventriloquism, it looks like, right? Or did you do other jobs
I
early
worked as
on?
a janitor at a store that was kind of like Kmart that we had
Uh,
here. It was called FedMart.
right.
And I worked as a janitor for like 5 years up until 1981, which is when I received this contract from the city of Phoenix to do safety shows. And
Ah,
that contract paid me well enough to have that become, my job. And so that, and along with the fact that I was doing some a local television show here in Arizona called the Wallace and Ladmo show. That gave me the opportunity to kind of do things on that show that I couldn't do in a live show. And I think I sent you a clip from that show.
yes, we're going to
Uh,
see that shortly.
so that gave me a lot of exposure locally. It was really only in the Arizona market. I got a lot of exposure locally from doing that show. It was a 5 days a week Monday through Friday show that was on in the mornings. I grew up watching the show. The show began in 1954. And so by 1979, I started making appearances on that show. And by the end, latter part, the fall, I'd say October of '81, I was invited to join the cast of the show.
Let's
And
take a look at that clip that you sent me so everyone can.
okay.
What we're talking about here, a clip from the Wallace and Ladmo show featuring Dan Horn.
Right.
Okay. Hi, today we're visiting with the world-famous stuntman, Homer Crutch. Today, Homer is going to attempt a stunt never before attempted. He's going to jump from a 13-story platform into a Ladmo bag. Okay, now first of all, Homer, I'd like to ask, why do you want to do this?
Because it's never been done before.
Okay, but just think of the danger involved here.
To the experienced stuntman, there is no danger. Everything is precisely calculated.
Okay, well, if you're ready, we're ready. I'll help you down here. Okay, he's heading over to the ladder there. Okay, now, while he's climbing up the ladder, I'll get the Ladmo bag in place here. Okay, here it is. Now, okay, he looks just about, he's almost to the top, looks just about ready. The Ladmo bag isn't quite lined up here. It looks to me like maybe it should be right here. Thank you very much.
So the reason I sent that clip to you is it demonstrated one of the one-off characters that I used to do. I had a puppet that I could turn into any character because there were no features on it. It was just a blank puppet. In fact, I used to call him Mel Blanc.
Famous voiceover artist, the most famous
Right.
voiceover artist, I think,
Right,
in
but
history.
he was Mel Blanc because he had no face. And by putting different eyes, noses, glasses, wigs, costumes, whatever, I could turn it into whatever character I wanted for the moment. So that clip was Homer Crutch. He was a stuntman, and it was because I had other stagehands available, it allowed for doing bits that I couldn't do live in my show. And so supposedly he's climbing up onto a platform, and supposedly he jumps, and of course he splats. Now the Ladmo bag, which is the paper sack he was supposed to dive into, that I moved out of the way, that caused the the unfortunate ending there. The Ladmo bag was the prize that we used to give away on our show. Whenever there were many ways kids could win one of these prizes. They could send in photographs or a drawing or something, or send in a postcard for a drawing where we drew out postcards. I meant the first time I said drawing, I meant they could draw a picture of a cast member or something funny, and they would get selected. There were lots of ways to win a Ladmo bag. Well, to this day, there are still people who are bitter over the fact that they never won a Ladmo bag. And it's actually, the show is still very well remembered here in Arizona, although it went off the air eventually in '89. And there are still people that want Ladmo bags.
I can imagine that's a devastating thing to have to burden to carry through your life, not winning a Ladmo bag.
Not winning a Ladmo bag.
I don't know how people recover from that.
We on one of our local stations, we just recently, I think there were 18 episodes, just did a kind of a retrospect of the TV show, and for that airing, people could send in a postcard to win a Ladmo bag. Well, I think we got something like 17,000 entries of people local, some 89, how long is it now, 99, 2009, almost 40 years later, are still trying to win a Ladmo bag. Something like 17,000 entries were received, which is just amazing. So the Ladmo bag is a coveted holy grail in the Arizona area.
I'm sure those lucky few who got one will take it to their grave. That's
So I got to be part of that show for more than 8 years, and it was great exposure. It was a great place for me to learn my craft, because I wasn't just a performer, I was a writer for the show and as well. And it was a wonderful experience at an early time in my career.
Orson has been your main character, as I gather, through most of your career. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Orson's character is supposed to be 19 or 91. That's because when I was 19 is when I created the character, and I just turned my age around. I'm 19, he's 91. And originally, I had Cassandra first. She was my first soft sculpture style puppet that I made. I had some other puppets and dummies prior to that, but these were the first ones that really kind of clicked with audiences. I was doing some open mic things with Cassandra that seemed to be going well. And so I created this puppet Orson that was really meant just for my family to see, because I was kind of poking fun at some of our close relatives, a little bit my grandfather, a little bit an aunt, a little bit of an uncle, and just kind of melded
combine them
characteristics into this puppet that I knew my family would recognize as being those people. And I didn't think that other people would find Orson funny, because they didn't know who he was representing. Well, I'd been doing open mics in the Phoenix area for a couple of months, probably, only using a routine with this girl puppet, Cassandra. And I was starting to want to branch out and do other things. And I thought, well, let's just see what the response would be to Orson. Well, the response, the very first time I brought him on stage, was tremendous. I had I mean, tremendous for that time. I was just thrilled, because the audience just loved him. And that's when I realized that, it wasn't necessary for people to know who the people were I was making fun of. It was just a character that kind of came together that everybody sort of related to.
Right.
So
everyone knows
I was
Orson.
19 when I created Orson, and he's still 91, even though I am not 19 anymore. And he's always been my main character ever since then. So
yeah, and a wonderful character he is too. Let's see some of you and Orson. We have some other clips. So let's take a look at that right now. Dan Horn in action performing.
We're back, and we're talking with our ventriloquists and their friends. And okay, kids, it is time for our next performance. I want you to give a big hand to 1993's Ventriloquist of the Year, Dan Horn, and his sidekick, Orson.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage right now, a very talented man. Yes, he is. You've seen him before on this show. So funny, we asked him to come back. Please welcome Dan Horn!
Working on this show, lots of times I've been accused of talking out of both sides of my mouth, but today we've got a guy who's really good at it. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Dan Horn on Funny Business.
Well, listen, you're going to love this next performer, because he's one of the funniest ventriloquists I've seen in a long, long time. He's been all over the country entertaining at comedy clubs. He's been on Comic Strip Live and the Showtime Comedy Club Network. Would you please give a nice palace welcome for Mr. Dan Horn?
Hey, welcome back to Comic Strip Live at the Laugh Factory. We're glad our next guest could be here, because he was voted the top act on the college circuit, and he made his broadcast debut right here on Comic Strip Live. We're very happy to have him back. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dan Horn.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a rare treat for us. Now, Orson has not done any performing. Hello? Check, 1, 2, what are you doing? Checking the mic. The mic is on. Please don't do that. All right, now, 1, 2, you cut that out. I don't hear anything. Let's turn up your hearing aid, okay? All right, now, as I was trying to say, this is a rare treat for us tonight. little bit about your vaudeville career, if you would.
Well, you know, years ago, I used to be a ventriloquist.
A ventriloquist? Yeah, I didn't know that. Well, let's see you make a glass talk or an ashtray.
No, I need my dummy.
You've got a dummy. Where is it?
Little suitcase in that trunk.
Well, let me get it for you here.
Wait a minute, Dan. Wait a minute. What are you doing?
I'm trying to get your suitcase.
Well, hurry up. It stinks down here. Let me.
Orson. Orson, what's the matter?
I don't know.
All right, now, wait a minute. What do you do in a situation like this?
You die.
Okay. Hang on, I'll try mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
You do that, you're dead.
Oh.
All right, are you ready to sing here? All right, give me just a minute. I need a drink of water.
Is a drink of mine okay? Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, now come on, tell me about your vacation.
Oh, man, it was terrible. That's another reason I'm depressed. I was headed to Hawaii. I ended up in Burbank. Oh,
Well, how did that happen?
oh, you know how the airlines can lose your luggage?
You went there to get your luggage?
How was the luggage?
B is easy. The B is such a busy soul. He has no time for birth control, and that is why in times like these there are so many sons of bees.
That's very good.
You're gonna sing? Yeah. Okay, what are you gonna sing?
Love song.
A love song sounds good.
I gotta warm up.
All right, go ahead.
Little aerobic workout. Get me going.
Yeah. What kind of a workout is that?
I saw Charlie Chase do it.
This is known.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Little tune from Orson.
I need a pitch. To sing on a pitch.
All right, let me give you a pitch. How's this? Ah. You want that again?
No, I got it.
Sorry, I tell you what, why don't I pull out the sword, okay? Okay, here we go. Now, it's caught on something! Me! All right, brace yourself. I'll pull real hard and I'll get you out of there.
I don't know how you got me in here.
Are you braced? Okay.
Is this on?
It is on! Don't do that again, okay? Cut it out. All right. And I can hear you, all right?
Will you mellow out?
I'm sorry.
Hey, how come it is so dark in here?
Well, your eyes are shut. Open them all the way up, and then we can... There we go. All right, now. Now, sit there a second. Try to catch your breath. Maybe asking you to sing is going to be... what are you doing?
CPR.
This is going to take long.
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Look, we don't have that much time up here. Can you hurry?
I'm dying.
I know the act will die if you take out 10 minutes. Look,
It takes this hurt.
I know this once. Could you hurry? Dan, please. There. If you're going to work a puppet, let's take these off here. No, yeah, these are going to get in your way.
What am I?
Let me have it here. No. Come on. All right, now, oh, this is going to be fun. Now, this is one of those old-fashioned kind of puppets that has the mouth that goes up and down here. Now, I can tell that this is like really an antique. Now, I'm sorry about that.
They've fallen and they can't get up.
That's Dan Horn with Orson, and you can see in that in those clips the elements that all come together in Dan's performances to make him the consummate artist that he is, that you are, Dan. Because now, for one thing, I got to ask you about those rods, because you're particularly known for being a master at that rod arm manipulation. So I've never done that. I've never even tried it. So it's really very impressive to everybody whoever sees it.
Well, thanks.
How masterful you are at that. How did that come about? When did you start doing that?
Well, when I made the first soft sculpture puppet, which was Cassandra, the one that I told you about, I was actually friends with a lady. Her name was Ingrid Helm, and she was from Germany, and she made these amazing puppets, hand puppets that she made out of paper mache and painted them, and they were just beautiful puppets in the old German style of hand puppets. And she belonged to the Phoenix Puppetry Guild. And she said, hey, we're going to have a workshop one day on making Muppet style soft sculpture puppets. Would you like to come along? Well, yes, I wanted to go. And I went to this workshop. And at the end of the day, I had this Muppet style puppet that was only from the waist up. That was the puppet that I turned into Cassandra, the very first Cassandra. And I thought, well, I don't really do puppeteering, I do ventriloquism, but why couldn't I just take this puppet and add legs onto it and use it as a ventriloquist puppet? So that's what I did. And because it was supposed to be a Muppet style of puppet, like we'd seen on the Muppet Show, this was like about 76, 77, somewhere around there, about 76, I think. We made rods to put on the hands. And so when I added the legs, I never took the rods off. I just started moving the hands with the rest of the puppet. And I found that doing that, I could get lots of movements out of the puppet, that the movements not only helped with the illusion that the puppet was alive, but I could do things with the hands that would look funny and get a laugh just from movement of the puppet. So that's how that started. It was I guess in homage to the Muppets and the way that and of course they weren't the only ones that did movement of the hands and the arms. Wayland Flowers, who did Madam, also used rods to work her hands. And so I just continued to do that since we made them in that workshop and they were on the puppet. I found that was something that added a lot to the puppet, so I never wanted to not do it.
Right, it certainly does add a lot, especially how you do it. I think you are the innovator, as far as I know. Do you know of anyone else who did that before you, combining ventriloquism with this rod puppetry? I don't think so.
I can't think of Wayland Flowers, who of course was not a ventriloquist. He's the closest that I can recall. I've seen people do where they take the hand and they just pick it up or move it, or they have the elbow thing.
Right,
but I can't think of any other ventriloquists. I'm sure that there must have been, but prior to my doing
none that I know of either.
I wasn't really emulating anybody else when I did it. I was just doing what I found facilitated the act as I was doing it. And so that's why I started doing it and kept doing it. And I even added, on my wooden figures, I even added rods onto their hands. I have a Selberg figure, and Tim Selberg created these wonderful wooden hands for the dummy, but I was worried if I moved the arms, I might hit the face, and
wood against wood, damage.
Cause damage. And I happened to mention this to Tim one time, that I wanted to do more with the hands, but I'm worried about hitting the face. Well, he contacted me and says, I've made you some hands that are latex, and I'm going to send them to you. Well, to the appearance, they looked exactly like the original hands, but they were rubber. They were made out of latex and they were soft. So I replaced those hands on my Selberg figure. And now if I accidentally bumped the face or did a gesture up to the face, it caused no damage at all because it was rubber and it was soft. So I started using the rods with my Selberg figure as well, and found that I could get just as many effects, using the arms on a wooden figure as you can get with using a hand puppet soft sculpture style figure.
Which character is the Selberg figure?
It's an old lady character. He originally he made 3 of them, I think. It was called Viola, and I renamed the puppet Maxine, but he made one for me, and I think he had one for himself that he made, and one that he made and sold. And then he discontinued the character, telling me that he wasn't going to do any more unless I ever asked him to make another one, and then he would make one more copy for me. But I never did that. So as far as I know, there's only 2 or possibly 3 of this version of Tim's puppet that's out there. And of course I used mine quite a bit. I used to travel a lot, and once traveling with heavy equipment started being an issue, I just went to full soft sculpture because they were much lighter. This Selberg figure is in she's quite heavy herself, and she's in a trunk that the trunk is heavy, but you wouldn't dare want to travel without her in the trunk because there'd be too much damage that could.
That's the drawback of the hard
happen.
figures. The wooden figures or the other hard traditional ventriloquist figures. I have to deal with that when I perform. I use both soft and hard figures. I used to have usually 2 hard figures, then 2 or 3 soft figures, and through the years I cut it back to only 1 hard figure most of the time, because of just even one is sort of is a pain to have to lug around, because you need a padded suitcase, and it's heavy and fragile and all that. So
well, I used this figure when I did the Vicki Lawrence show back in '93. And so whenever I'm done with the figure, I don't use it much now because of the issue of the travel issue with that. Anyway, I'm going to donate it to Venthaven Museum one day. Right now, I've got her dressed up as a witch. I don't know if we can see this. For Halloween, I dressed her up as a witch to sit outside and greet the kids coming up to the door for candy. Let's see if I can find a picture of it. I think I'm going to leave her as the witch character, and eventually I will donate her to Venthaven Museum, because I really don't want other people adopting my characters and using them. I want to keep them as my characters. When I was about 13, I was going to do a Cub Scout Halloween party. I was going to perform, and I created a witch character back then that I called Stella, and I wrote a little song for this witch character, and I performed it when I was 13. Well, years later, I turned it into a book that I'm actually going to have available at the convention this year. It's a new book for the first time. It was based on the witch character and this song. I expanded the text. Anyway, I used this witch character to talk to the kids, to greet the kids when they came up to the door on Halloween. Here's the book, and I'm going to have it at the Ventriloquist convention this year. And it's illustrated by Dennis Acosta. And I can show you, there's a picture in the back. I don't know if you can see that. That's me with the original witch puppet, and then I've included the music, for it, and so somebody could actually buy this. That's going to be part of my show this year, and get a witch puppet, and they could do this as a routine for a Halloween party if anybody's doing it.
Nice. So the music, is that especially a theme song for the witch? Is there especially written?
It's the lyrics are set in verse. The text of the book is set in verse, and you can actually sing the entire book set to the music, which which the arrangement I did recently, but the song I wrote when I was 13.
Oh, you
And I've
actually wrote the
updated
song.
some of the the lyrics. So it's a book and it's a song, and hopefully it'll be something that people will like to have. Oh, here she is. Okay. Now I finally found it. So I don't know if you can see this here,
Oh,
but
it's a little hard. Yeah, there's a glare, so
yeah,
we
sorry.
cannot really see the face clearly.
It's I don't know. Let's see if we can get
Oh,
it.
now, yeah. Oh, yeah. Leave it there close. Now we can see it.
You can. I've
Right.
got her dressed up as
Yes, yes. Now we see it. So that's a
as a
Selberg,
witch.
right? Selberg figure.
Yes, this is
Right.
made by Tim Selberg,
Mm.
and now
Oh, yeah. That's a great figure and great outfit.
she's Stella the witch. But anyway, someday I will donate her to the Vent Haven Museum. But I use the rods for her when I work with her. The animations that are in the figure are just great for the character because she doesn't have the upper lip, but she's got the eyebrows that can go
Oh,
up and
really?
come
Up
down.
and
And
down.
when
Up
the
and down.
eyebrows are up, she's like the sweet little old lady. And then
Right.
she can I can bring the eyebrows down, and now she's like this mean character.
In recent years, you've been on cruise ships a lot. I've read, right, and heard.
Yeah, I started doing ships in the early 90s, but by 2003, I used to perform a lot on the college market. And by 2003, I kind of was tired of the drudgery of going from little town to little town, literally sometimes without enough time in between to make it, thanks to the way my my agent at the time would book things. He would literally book me in like Broward County, Florida for a 2 o'clock show, and then have me scheduled in Daytona Beach, Florida for a 6 o'clock show. Well, the show, I wouldn't finish the show until 3 o'clock. And it's like a 5 or 6 hour drive to get to and I would have 4 hours to do it. So anyway, I got kind of tired of
tired of that agent, I'm assuming.
that's a whole
another
story
story.
unto itself, is the ordeals that happened with him. But anyway, and we won't go into it because it's not a pleasant story.
All right.
But the work was great. I loved working the college market. I just didn't like the grueling nature of having to literally be all over a state within just a few hours, having only a couple of hours to get from one place to the other and get set up and do the show, and then have to rush off to do somewhere else. So I started booking more cruise ships, and so for the last 20 years, I guess, from about 2003 until about 2020, I started doing more cruise ships.
What's that
And
experience
really,
like for you? What has it been like for you?
I really liked working the ships. You have, a lot of people really kind of look down their noses on working ships. Well, that was until the comedy club market kind of dried up, and then people that swore they would never work a ship are suddenly wanting to work ships.
Yeah.
But you've got audiences who respond very well to your shows because they're like adults and they know how to behave when they're at a live performance. And then you've got professional settings, a beautiful theater to work in, and a nice stage, and professional lighting and professional sound. And working the ships, I got to literally go all over the world. It was a wonderful experience working the ships.
Sort of the opposite from what you described of the college experience as far as the stress, it seems to me, because on a cruise ship, you're not, from what I've heard, I've never worked cruise ships, you only do a couple of shows a week or something like that?
Well, it varied. When I first started doing it, I would work maybe one show per cruise. I mean, literally one show. Sometimes it would be two. You would be like doing the opening night show, only 15 minutes, and then you might not be seen again until the closing night show for 15 minutes. Toward the end there, as I guess economics became an issue, the ships were starting to really try to wring every drop out of you that they could. And so it got to the point where you would be working, they started with the line I was working with at the time was doing this. They wanted you to do 3 shows back to back, 3 45-minute shows back to back on one night. And then possibly the next night or within 2 nights, have you back to do a completely different 45-minute show, 3 back to back. And it got to the point where my voice just wouldn't hold up. I started having just major issues, which I'm still having to this day, trying to meet that demand.
It's a big strain on the voice.
And so I was literally heading out the door to fly to another ship back in February of 2020 when my agent caught me just as I was about to go out the door and said, no, the cruise has been canceled because of the COVID. And I know that was a terrible time for everybody, but that's what I took as my time to bow out from doing cruises, because it was just, it was killing me, literally, the number of shows that they were asking for us to do. And so that was my official retirement then.
That's the
I'm
opposite of
officially
what I heard.
retired now as of December 31st, 2022, but my time as a performer ended in February of 2020.
You're officially retired for cruise ships, or we hope, I'm sure, that you don't mean totally retired.
No,
officially.
I am completely retired now. I'm not doing
Seriously,
any performing or
I did not
anything
hear
else.
that. Sounds like it would be big disappointing news in the event world.
Well,
The
that's
idea of
kind of
your-
why I haven't really made it known out there too much. I'm supposed to be performing at the upcoming ventriloquist convention in July of 2023, and I'm terrified because I haven't done a show in 3 years, so we'll see what happens.
Wow. So
But this is
what?
probably going to be my last professional appearance. So I've been
That's a
doing this
big-
a lot. I'm not usually that air quotes kind of guy, but I say my last appearance because, it probably won't really be, but no, I don't have the voice anymore.
Oh, that's shocking news. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be shocked to hear that, because as one of the preeminent ventriloquists in the world, that it's kind of sad. I feel sad, frankly, you're not going to perform again.
Well, thanks. But I never wanted to do this to the point. I always wanted to quit while I was ahead. I didn't want to keep going and doing this once I felt my skill set has declined. I wanted to be done like way back in my 40s. There are certain performers who, as they got older, like George Burns, as he got older, he just got better and better and better. But there were other comedians that, as they got older, you could just see a clear decline there. And I always found that to be sad, and I never wanted people to look at me and go, wow, he should have quit years ago. So I want to quit before I've reached that point of decay that makes people sad.
Well, people are going to be sad that you're not doing it anymore, for sure.
Well, I'm still doing a lot of coaching and writing and stuff. So I'm still doing stuff like, I'm creating more books and things like that. But I'm not wanting to be up on stage anymore. I feel, in fact, you can't hear it now, but there's a graveliness in my voice right now just from us talking this short amount of time. After a couple of minutes, I start losing my voice, and I just don't have it there anymore. And I don't want to go out and disappoint people,
What would be the one thing? Is there one thing that would entice you to do it again? Any venue, a type of performance, an event that you can imagine that that would entice you? TV show or a movie, or I don't know what, some kind of grand theater experience.
Well,
event.
I would love to still be doing it if I had my full faculties, but I don't want to. I don't want to get up on stage and not be able to meet what I know are my standards and what other people have come to expect. And if I can't meet that, which I can't anymore physically, I just don't have the voice. I don't want to try because I don't want to disappoint.
Have you seen a vocal expert about that? Like what might be going on there that could be?
Not lately, but I have over the years, and my voice is just shot. It's just been too much damage. And part of it is trying to do 3 45-minute shows back to back in one night, which went on for the last 4 or 5 years of my cruise career. So
well, I don't want to strain your voice and be responsible for any additional strain on your voice right now. So
well, I have
we'll
nothing to live
up
up to right now, so it's okay. I'm not trying to impress anyone right now. So
oh, okay. Well, in that case, maybe a final question. I wonder who was the biggest influence? I know you mentioned the initial influence was the female ventriloquist beauty pageant. I forgot her name. The
Vonda K. Van Dyke. She was Miss America in 1965. She was what put ventriloquism on the map for me. But if I was to name my biggest influence, it would have to be Jimmy Nelson, because it was his record that gave me the tools to start learning how to be a ventriloquist. But as far as, so Jimmy is one of my all-time favorites, and of course getting to meet him years later and getting to know him was just incredible. I don't set this person above Jimmy. I set him as an equal to Jimmy, but Edgar Bergen has always been a huge influence on me because of the wonderful material that Edgar did for so long. You can find the old radio shows and listen to them. I know you're not seeing the ventriloquism act, but you're hearing it. You're hearing a clearly delineated personality for Edgar and for the character. And the material was just so wonderful.
It reflected the age very much too, because it's a type of humor I don't think we go over well these days, but it was wonderful because it was just of its time, and
but so much of it is timeless. And just about 2 months before Edgar Bergen passed away, he was doing a tour on his way out to Vegas, and he stopped here in Arizona. I live in the Phoenix area, and he did a show here, and I went to see him, and he did an intermission in the middle of his show, and I got up and asked one of the ushers, is there any way that I could meet this guy after the show? And he said yes. He actually comes out after the show and chats with people. So I waited around. There was a small group of people waiting to meet him, and I waited about a half an hour until he sat and talked with each, or not sat, but chatted with each person until it was just he and I. And then he spent about half an hour with just me, chatting and talking about his career, and we talked a little bit about what my aspirations were, because at that time I hadn't really done anything of a professional quality. I was just kind of just getting started. But he was so kind, so warm. Never once did he look at his watch and say, gosh, I got, it was great, I gotta go. He was everything you ever wanted an idol to be.
Oh, how refreshing, how nice. There's so many stories about people who famous artists, celebrities, and who people are invariably disappointed in real life, but it's nice when you get one who,
and I've got a few of those too, and I could name names of people that I never hope to meet again, but anyway, he was not one of them. And sadly, he was there only for 2 nights, and luckily I got to be there for one of the performances. Then he went on to Vegas and did his show there. I think it was Caesar's Palace. And the night that he said it was time for him to wrap things up is the night that he passed away. And I was just devastated. But obviously, Jim Henson was a huge influence on me from a puppet point of view. I love and still do love the Muppets. And I always hoped that one day I'd have a chance to meet Jim Henson and tell him how much of an influence he was on me. And of course, he passed away, and I'm still devastated by that I never had the chance to meet him, even though he has nothing to do with the ventriloquist world. It was the strength of the characters that he created, he and others, in his group, Frank Oz and so forth. So Jim Henson was a huge mentor to me without knowing, and I did that again. I don't know. I never do that. I don't know why I'm doing that. I guess because he was a mentor to me, in my opinion, but he never knew it, never met me or heard of me. So he wasn't an actual mentor, I guess. But Jimmy
inspired
Nelson,
countless people.
Edgar Bergen, Jim Henson, those are my idols. And of course, there are others, Sherry Lewis, Paul Winchell. I never got to meet Sherry. I was very bummed. I went out to the Six Flags Park, Magic Mountain in California, and learned that Sherry was going to be there. And I got all excited. And then I found out that I was looking at a flyer that was from the day before, and that she was there literally the day before, but not the day I was there. But I have met Mallory, and Mallory is doing wonderful.
Her daughter, Sherry Lewis's daughter.
Yes, Mallory Lewis, Sherry Lewis's daughter. She does lamb chop every bit as well as Sherry did. Mallory has her own personality, which is different from Sherry, but lamb chop is lamb chop when she does it. She does lamb chop just the way her mother did. And that's very impressive. And I had the opportunity to spend some time with Paul Winchell when my kids were little. Paul Winchell was a big influence as well.
So. Yes, he was a great influence. He was my personal biggest influence in my development as a ventriloquist. And so it was a great thrill for me when I got to meet him a couple of times at the convention. Well, one time at the convention, a couple of conversations. Well, I think at one convention. But Jimmy Nelson too, who also was a very sweet, down-to-earth guy. From the little bit I talked with him and everything I've heard about him.
By the way, just for the record, everybody I mentioned were absolutely wonderful to meet. It was not a single one of them was somebody where I walked
not
away
from that
going,
other
wow,
list.
that was because we talked about that earlier, and I just want to make it clear that Paul Winchell,
we're talking about other people.
He went to breakfast with me and with my family and I the day after the convention in Vegas, and spent about half an hour more than half an hour, better part of an hour, I guess, just sitting with us, having breakfast and chatting. And so, everybody in that class were class. Paul Winchell, Jimmy Nelson, Edgar Bergen, and I'm sure Sherry would have been also, but I didn't get to meet her. But Mallory is, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mallory's a very sweet personality as well. And getting to meet her and work with her one time was a great experience.
Yeah, all the above mentioned people were great influences on countless ventriloquists, and including myself. And you have been a great influence and inspiration to countless people, including myself, because I got into it a little bit later in life as a young adult.
Thank you.
And yes, you definitely were one of those ventriloquists who really inspired me to work hard in it and make it a career of my own. So on behalf of countless people out there, ventriloquists and fans of ventriloquism, fans of comedy, we hope that maybe somehow you'll do a little more performing, at least now and then. But we thank you for everything you've done.
As it stands right now, it looks like at the Ventriloquist Convention in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, it's there at the airport, Erlanger or something like that. That's probably going to be my very last public appearance. So if anybody is thinking about coming and maybe on the fence, maybe that will be inspiration for them to come. But
I'm sure it will be.
From the way I look at it now, I'm thinking that show I'll be on the Thursday night show. That will probably be my last public performance. I still hope to do, coaching and things like that, but we're coming up to what I see as my last performance. So
there still are videos, fortunately. At least there are some videos of you on the internet, on YouTube. I know there's some. So hopefully they'll stay up there and people will still be able to enjoy them.
I need to put some on myself. I haven't put any. I've posted videos to Facebook, but I haven't posted anything on YouTube. So I need to do that.
Please do. Yes.
Whatever, I haven't even looked to see what's out there, but whatever is out there was all put out there by other people. But
I noticed that when I Googled you. I've seen some videos of you from time to time, and none of them seem to be from you.
I'll make this as short a story as possible. I used to have I had a bunch of videos up there that I put on YouTube that I put up, and then YouTube was acquired by Google, and I got locked out of my account. And when I spent like 5 hours one day of trying to get back into my account, I finally got in, and I went in and deleted everything with the intention of starting a new page,
new channel,
and then a new channel, and uploading everything again. And so I deleted everything, but I never got around to setting up a new channel, and so that's why I don't have anything on there. I didn't want to have to spend 5 hours every time I wanted to get in and change something. So the intention was to start a new channel and do it. So hopefully I'll get around to that too, one of these days. So
I hope so. We'll all look forward to that. Thank you very much, Dan Horn, for being my guest today on Talking It Out. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be talking with you here today.
Well, thank you very much.
For all of you out there who enjoyed this interview, and why would you not enjoy this interview, make sure that you subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet. Hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell so that you'll be notified of new uploads. I've got a lot of other fascinating guests lined up for the near future. And right here on this channel, if you haven't seen Casanoir yet, that's my recent short film that I made that's won many awards, 26 at last count, in international film festivals. And it's right up there, for the time being at least, for free for you to see on YouTube. For a while it was only available in film festivals for a year or so, but now's your chance to watch it, enjoy it there, as well as the Trillo Suede web series. I have 2 seasons of it that are also up there for free right here on this channel. Hundreds of other videos of all kinds. So enjoy them. And also this playlist, we have a playlist developing right now of the Talking It Out interviews, of which Dan is my latest current guest right now. So once again, thank you very much, Dan, for joining me. And
it's been great. Thank you very much for asking.
And to all of you out there, see you soon.